The sun was setting over the Montana hills when Helen stood in front of her bathroom mirror, staring at the dark circles under her eyes. 2 years. It had been 2 years since Michael died, and the ranch was falling apart piece by piece. She was 42 years old, bone-tired and running out of options. She walked to the kitchen where her 3 kids sat doing homework. Lily, the oldest at 17, looked up with worried eyes. The twins, Jack and Rose, both 14, kept their heads down. They knew Mom had something to say, and lately her announcements were never good. Helen took a deep breath. Her hands were shaking slightly as she gripped the back of the chair. The letter was folded in her apron pocket, and it felt like it weighed 100 pounds. "I need to tell you all something," she started. The kitchen went completely silent except for the old clock ticking on the wall. She had been thinking about this for months. The bills were piling up. The fence on the north pasture was falling down. 3 of the water pumps needed replacing. The barn roof leaked in 5 places. And she was just one person trying to do the work of 3 men. "I've been writing letters," she said slowly, pulling out the worn envelope. "To someone, a man. From Ukraine." Lily's fork clattered onto her plate. "What kind of letters?" Helen felt her cheeks burn. "There's a service. For people who want to find partners. From other countries. He's a farmer. His name is Anton. He knows about ranching and hard work." "You've got to be kidding me," Lily said, pushing back from the table. Her voice was rising. "Mom, those are scams." "Everyone knows that. They just want money or a green card or whatever." "I've been careful," Helen insisted. "We've been writing for 4 months. He sent photos. He talks about his farm back home, about his family. He lost everything in the war." Jack finally looked up. "So he's coming here? Like to live with us?" "If things work out," Helen said quietly. "He arrives next week." The silence that followed was worse than any argument. Rose had tears in her eyes. Lily stood up so fast her chair nearly tipped over. "I can't believe you," Lily said. "Dad's only been gone 2 years and you're ordering some random guy off the internet like he's a piece of furniture?" "That's not fair," Helen said, but her voice cracked. "You think I want this? You think this is easy for me?" She sat down heavily in Michael's old chair. The leather was worn smooth where his hands used to rest. She touched the armrest gently like she always did. "I lie awake every night wondering if we'll lose this place," she said. "Your dad built this ranch with his own 2 hands. His father before him. I'm watching it die and I can't stop it alone. I've tried. God knows I've tried." The twins were crying now too. Helen wiped her own eyes with the back of her hand. "I know this seems crazy. Maybe it is. But Anton writes about the land like your dad used to. He understands what it means to work soil and care for animals. He's not some city person who thinks ranching is romantic. He knows it's hard. He wants hard. He needs a fresh start. And we need help." "What does Uncle Robert say?" Lily asked coldly. Robert was Michael's brother and he'd been pushing Helen to sell the ranch since the funeral. "I haven't told him yet," Helen admitted. That was going to be another nightmare entirely. The next few days crawled by. Helen could barely sleep. She'd wake up at 3 in the morning, her heart pounding, wondering what she'd done. The whole town would talk. They probably already were talking. Someone at the post office had definitely noticed all those letters coming from overseas. Sure enough, on Thursday, Dorothy from the next ranch over stopped by with a casserole. Dorothy never brought food unless she wanted gossip. "Heard some interesting news at the feed store," Dorothy said, setting the dish on the counter. "Something about you expecting a visitor?" Helen's stomach dropped. News travels fast. Honey, in a town this size, news travels before it even happens. Dorothy peered at her closely. "Is it true? You really went and found yourself a mail-order husband?" The word stung. Mail-order husband. Like she'd bought him from a catalog. "His name is Anton. He's a farmer. He needs a new start, and I need help with the ranch." Dorothy shook her head slowly. "Helen, I know you're struggling. We all know it, but this is desperate. These men, they're not what they seem in letters. They'll tell you anything to get here." "Maybe," Helen said tiredly. "But what choice do I have? Sell to Robert? Watch him turn Michael's dream into a strip mall or whatever he wants? Work myself into the ground until I drop dead in a field somewhere? There are other ways. Name one." Helen's voice was sharp now. "One way that doesn't end with me losing everything." Dorothy didn't have an answer for that. She left the casserole and went home. But Helen knew the whole county would be buzzing by Sunday. The day Anton was supposed to arrive came too fast. Helen stood in front of her closet for 20 minutes trying to decide what to wear. What do you wear to meet a man you might marry but have never actually seen in person? The photos could be 10 years old. They could be someone else entirely. She chose a simple blue dress and her good boots. Lily refused to come to the train station. She'd locked herself in her room and wouldn't even say goodbye. The twins climbed into the truck silently, and Helen could feel their anxiety like a living thing. The worst part was that Robert had somehow found out and insisted on coming along. He pulled up in his expensive SUV just as Helen was backing out of the driveway. "Thought you might want some moral support," he called out, but his smile was mean. "Can't let you face this circus alone." Helen's hands tightened on the steering wheel. She wanted to tell him to go away, but part of her was afraid to meet Anton alone. What if Dorothy was right? What if this was all a terrible mistake? The train station was nearly empty on a Tuesday morning. A cold November wind whipped across the platform and Helen pulled her coat tighter. Her heart was hammering so hard she thought everyone could hear it. The train appeared in the distance, its whistle cutting through the quiet morning. Helen felt like she might throw up. This was it. In a few minutes, everything would change. For better or worse, there was no going back now. She'd invited a complete stranger into her life, into her children's lives, into her home. The train slowed to a stop. The doors opened, and Helen's heart sank straight through the platform and into the earth below. Helen watched as passengers stepped off the train onto the cold platform. A businessman with a briefcase, an elderly couple helping each other down the steps, a mother with 2 small children. Then she saw him. At first she thought maybe he was homeless. The man walking toward them wore a coat that looked like it came from a donation bin in the 1980s. The fabric was so worn in places you could almost see through it. His pants had been patched multiple times with different colored fabric, and his shoes were held together with actual wire wrapped around the soles. He carried one bag. Not a suitcase, just a cloth bag that looked like it might fall apart if you breathed on it too hard. His hair was cut short, probably by himself with dull scissors, and his face was weathered like old leather. But his eyes were looking directly at Helen, and there was something in them. Hope, maybe, or fear. Probably both. "You've got to be joking," Robert said loudly beside her. He wasn't even trying to whisper. "That's him? That's your knight in shining armor?" Helen felt her face go hot. The man, Anton, was close enough now that he definitely heard. His steps slowed slightly and Helen saw something flicker across his face. Shame, maybe. "Hello," Anton said, stopping a respectful distance away. His accent was thick, his English careful. "You are Helen?" She couldn't speak for a moment. This man looked nothing like the photos he'd sent. Those pictures showed someone neat, decently dressed, with a gentle smile. This man looked like he'd been living on the streets. She started, but the words stuck in her throat. "This is priceless," Robert said, loud enough for the few other people on the platform to hear. "Absolutely priceless. Helen, you can't be serious." "Look at him." Anton's jaw tightened, but he kept his eyes on Helen. "The photos I send, they are from before I lose everything. I am sorry if I disappoint." "Mom," Rose whispered, tugging at Helen's sleeve. "Can we go home?" The small crowd of people at the station was staring now. Old Mrs. Peterson from the post office had her hand over her mouth. 2 men by the ticket booth were whispering to each other and smirking. Helen felt like she was standing naked in front of the whole town. "My truck is this way," she finally managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. The ride back to the ranch was the longest 20 minutes of Helen's life. Anton sat in the back of the truck with the twins, who pressed themselves against the opposite door like he might be contagious. Robert followed behind in his SUV, probably already calling everyone he knew to share the story. Nobody spoke. The only sound was the wind whistling through the crack in the driver's side window that Helen had never bothered to fix. She kept glancing in the rearview mirror at Anton. He sat perfectly still, his battered bag on his lap, looking out at the passing landscape with an expression she couldn't read. What had she done? What had she been thinking? Dorothy was right. Everyone was right. This was insane. When they pulled up to the ranch, Lily was standing on the porch with her arms crossed. One look at Anton climbing out of the truck and her face went from angry to horrified. "You have got to be kidding me," she said, echoing her uncle's words from earlier. "Mom, no. No way." "Lily, that's enough," Helen said, but there was no strength in her voice. Anton stood by the truck, still holding his bag. He looked at the ranch, at the house, at the barn in the distance. For a moment something soft crossed his face. Then Lily's words seemed to register and his expression went carefully blank again. "Perhaps," he said slowly. "There is barn. I can stay in barn. I do not need to trouble the house." "The barn?" Helen repeated. Part of her was relieved, but another part felt guilty for being relieved. "Yes, is fine. I have sleep in worse places." He said it simply, like it was just a fact. "I work for stay. Is our agreement, yes? I work, I help with ranch. Where you want me to start?" Robert had parked and walked up in time to hear this. He laughed, actually laughed out loud. "Work? Buddy, you look like a stiff breeze would knock you over. What exactly do you think you're going to do around here?" Anton turned to look at Robert. It was the first time Helen saw something like steel in his eyes. "I am farmer for 23 years. I know animals. I know land. I know work. In Ukraine, maybe." Robert shot back. "Things are different here." "Dirt is dirt," Anton said quietly. "Animals are animals. Work is work. These things, they are same everywhere." Helen found herself speaking up. "Robert, thank you for coming, but we need to get settled in." "I'll call you later." "You're really doing this?" Robert asked. "Helen, I'm begging you." "This is crazy. Send him back. Sell me the ranch. Take the money and start over somewhere easier." "Goodbye, Robert," Helen said firmly. After Robert left, still shaking his head, Helen showed Anton to the barn. There was a small room in the back that they'd used for storage. It had a cot, a tiny wood stove, and one window. It was freezing cold and smelled like old hay. "Is perfect," Anton said, setting his bag down on the cot. "Thank you." "There are blankets in the house," Helen said. "I'll bring them." "And you'll eat with us. Dinner is at 6. "I do not want to make trouble," Anton said. "Is already much." "I see the faces. I understand. I look like beggar. Maybe I am beggar now." He said it without self-pity, just stating facts. Helen didn't know what to say to that. "Just get settled. We'll figure things out." That first dinner was agony. Helen set a place for Anton at the table. Lily sat as far away as possible and didn't eat a bite. The twins kept their eyes on their plates. Anton ate slowly, carefully, like someone who hadn't had a good meal in a long time. He complimented the food 3 times. "This is very good. Thank you," he said after each bite. After dinner, he stood up immediately. "I wash dishes. You cook, I clean. Is fair?" Lily made a disgusted noise and went to her room. Helen heard the door slam. That night, Helen lay in bed staring at the ceiling. From her window, she could see the faint light from the barn where Anton was probably trying to stay warm, with the 2 thin blankets she'd brought him. She thought about his wire-wrapped shoes, his patched pants, the way he'd thanked her 3 times for a simple meal. She thought about Robert's laughter, the stairs at the train station, Lily's horrified face, the way her own stomach had dropped when she first saw Anton. She'd brought a stranger to her home. A stranger who looked like he'd lost everything. And now that stranger was sleeping in her cold barn, probably wondering if he'd made a terrible mistake coming to America. Helen pulled Michael's pillow against her chest. It didn't smell like him anymore, but she held it anyway. "I don't know if I can do this," she whispered into the darkness. "I don't know if I'm strong enough." The house was silent. Outside, the November wind rattled the windows. And in the barn, a man who'd traveled 5,000 miles for a chance at a new life tried to sleep on a worn-out cot, wondering if tomorrow would bring hope or just more shame. Morning would come soon enough, and with it the real test would begin. Helen woke at 5 in the morning like always. The house was dark and cold. She pulled on her work clothes and headed downstairs to make coffee, dreading the day ahead. She had to figure out what to do with Anton. Give him some simple tasks maybe, see if he actually knew anything about ranch work. But when she looked out the kitchen window toward the barn, she saw light already glowing from inside. She checked the clock. 5:15. Who was up this early? She pulled on her boots and coat and walked across the frozen yard. The barn door was open a crack and she could hear movement inside. She pushed it open. Anton was already working. He'd mucked out 3 of the horse stalls and was starting on the 4th. His breath came out in clouds in the cold air, and even in the dim light, she could see sweat on his face despite the freezing temperature. "You're up early," she said. He turned, startled. "I am sorry." "I wake you?" "I try to be quiet. No, I always get up at 5. But you didn't have to start without me. I was going to show you around." "I see work that needs doing," he said simply. so I do it, is okay? Helen looked at the stalls. He'd done them properly, not just a quick surface job. The corners were clean, fresh straw laid down evenly. This was the work of someone who actually knew what they were doing. Yes, she said slowly. That's okay. Over the next few days, a pattern emerged. No matter how early Helen got up, Anton was already working. He fixed the broken latch on the chicken coop. He repaired 2 sections of fence that had been sagging for months. He cleaned the water troughs and somehow got the stubborn pump in the south pasture working again, something Helen had given up on. He never asked for anything. Never complained. When Helen brought him meals, he thanked her like she'd given him gold. At night, he went back to his cold room in the barn without a word. But Lily's attitude got worse instead of better. One morning at breakfast, she started in again. Everyone at school is talking about us, she said, glaring at her mother. They're calling us the charity case family, saying we're so desperate we had to import a homeless person. That's enough, Helen said sharply, is not enough. Lily shot back. Do you know what Ashley's mom said? She said you must be really lonely to scrape the bottom of the barrel like that. And you know what? She's right, Lily. His English is terrible. His clothes are literally falling apart. He looks like he should be standing on a street corner with a cardboard sign. And you want us to accept him as what, our new dad? I never said that. Then what is he? Why is he even here? Helen had no good answer. She'd asked herself the same question 100 times. The twins, at least, were slowly warming up to Anton. Or Jack was, anyway. He'd gone out to the barn one afternoon to do his homework somewhere quiet, away from Lily's constant anger. Anton had been working on an old tractor that had been broken for 2 years. What are you doing? Jack asked. Trying to make this machine work again, Anton said. Is old, but is good bones. Just needs someone to pay attention. Jack watched for a while. You really know how to fix tractors? I know how to fix many things. When you are poor, you learn to fix instead of buying new. He looked at Jack. You want to help? By dinner, Jack was talking excitedly about compression ratios and spark plugs. Lily rolled her eyes so hard Helen thought they might fall out of her head. Then the first real test came. The weather report called for an early blizzard. Unusual for November, but not impossible. Helen spent the day moving the cattle closer to the barn, making sure water wouldn't freeze, securing anything that could blow away. It was exhausting work. Anton worked alongside her without being asked. He seemed to know what needed doing before she said it. When she went to check on the herd in the far pasture, he was already there, counting heads, looking for any animals that seemed weak or sick. This one, he said, pointing to a young heifer standing apart from the others. She is not right, see? She holds her head wrong, and her breathing is too fast. Helen looked closer. He was right. The heifer was in early stages of distress. If the blizzard hit and she was out here alone, she'd die. We need to get her to the barn, Helen said. It took both of them an hour to coax the sick animal back. The wind was already picking up, temperature dropping fast. By the time they got the heifer settled in a stall, the snow was starting. It snowed for 3 days straight. Helen had seen bad storms before, but this was something else. The wind howled like a living thing. Snow piled up against the windows. The power went out on day 2. They heated the house with the fireplace and wood stove, rationing the firewood carefully. Anton barely slept. Helen would wake up at 2 in the morning and see light in the barn. She'd pull on her warmest clothes and trudge through waist-deep snow to check on him. He was always with the animals, especially the sick heifer. He'd rigged up heat lamps running off the backup generator. He sat with the animal for hours, talking to her softly in Ukrainian, rubbing her down, forcing water down her throat with a bottle when she wouldn't drink. You need to sleep, Helen told him on the second night. She needs someone, he said. If I sleep, maybe she dies. I cannot let her die. Anton, you're going to make yourself sick. He looked at her with those tired eyes. In my country, I have dairy cows. 12 of them. I know each one by name. I know their mothers and grandmothers. When the war comes, I have to leave them. I hear them crying when I walk away. I hear them still in my dreams. I cannot save them. But this one I can save. So I stay. Helen felt something crack in her chest. She went back to the house and brought him coffee, a thick blanket and the good pillow from the guest room. By day 3, the storm was easing. The heifer was standing up, eating hay, her eyes bright and healthy. Anton had saved her, but he'd worked himself to exhaustion. Helen found him that morning slumped against the stall, the heifer nuzzling his hair like she knew he was the one who'd kept her alive. Helen had to shake him awake. His face was pale, his hands shaking from fatigue. "Come to the house," she said. "You need real food and real rest. The barn will be fine for a few hours." "Come on." She half led, half dragged him to the house. Lily was in the kitchen making breakfast. She looked up as they came in and her mouth opened to say something cutting, but Helen cut her off with a look. Anton sat with the sick heifer for 3 days straight. Helen said quietly, "He saved her life. Now he's going to eat a proper meal and sleep in the guest room for a while. Anyone got a problem with that?" Lily stared at Anton, really looked at him for the first time, at his exhausted face, his hands covered in scratches and bruises from working in the cold, the way he could barely stand up straight. "No," she said softly, "no problem, but the real test was yet to come." That afternoon, Dorothy stopped by on her snowmobile, ostensibly to check if they needed anything. Really, she wanted to see how the situation was going. "Heard you made it through the storm okay," Dorothy said, accepting a cup of coffee. "That's good. That's real good. We did fine," Helen said. "And your guest? He working out?" Helen felt her hackles rise. "Anton saved one of my heifers. Sat up with her for 3 days straight." Dorothy raised her eyebrows. "Well, that's something, I suppose. Though you know, Helen, people are talking. They're saying you're being taken advantage of. Man shows up looking like that, living in your barn, working for free room and board. It doesn't look right. Doesn't look right to who? To everyone." Dorothy leaned forward. "Honey, I know you're trying to make this work, but you need to think about your reputation. Think about your kids. This arrangement, it's not normal." "Nothing about my life has been normal since Michael died," Helen said tiredly. "I'm doing the best I can. I know, sweetie. I know. But there are other ways. Better ways. You don't have to settle for—" She stopped herself. "For what?" Helen asked quietly. "Well, for a man in rags? For someone who lost everything and is trying to rebuild? For someone who works harder than anyone I've ever seen and never asks for anything in return?" Dorothy stood up. "I'm just trying to help. Then help by minding your own business." After Dorothy left, Helen sat at the kitchen table with her head in her hands. Was everyone right? Was she being foolish, used? Was this whole thing a disaster waiting to happen? She didn't have answers. All she knew was that for the first time in 2 years, the ranch work was getting done. The animals were cared for. Someone else was sharing the impossible burden she'd been carrying alone. Maybe that made her desperate. Maybe that made her foolish. But maybe, just maybe, it made her smart. 3 weeks after Anton arrived, Robert showed up unannounced with a man in an expensive suit. Helen was in the barn helping Anton repair a broken gate when she heard the vehicles pull up. "Helen," Robert called out, his voice echoing across the yard. "Got someone here who wants to meet you." Helen wiped her hands on her jeans and walked out, Anton following a few steps behind. The man in the suit smiled, showing too many teeth. He stuck out his hand. "Mrs. Thompson, I'm David Chen. I represent a development company interested in this property. Your brother-in-law thought we should talk." Helen's blood went cold. She looked at Robert. "What is this?" "Just a conversation," Robert said smoothly. "David's company wants to build a resort community out here. They're offering good money, Helen. Really good money." "I'm not selling," Helen said flatly. "Just hear him out," Robert insisted. "You can't keep running this place alone. Be reasonable." "I'm not alone," Helen said, glancing at Anton. Robert laughed. "Him? Helen, come on. How long do you think this little arrangement is going to last? He's living in your barn like a stray dog. People are talking. They're calling you desperate." "Is that what you want?" Mr. Chen cleared his throat. "Perhaps we could discuss this inside. I have some papers to show you, projections, financial estimates. I said I'm not selling." "Mom." It was Lily coming out of the house. "What's going on?" "Nothing," Helen said. "They're leaving." "We're not leaving until you look at these numbers," Robert said, his friendly tone slipping. "Helen, Michael would want you to be practical. This place is killing you. Take the money. Start fresh somewhere easier. Don't you dare tell me what Michael would want." Helen's voice shook. This ranch was his dream. His father's dream. "I'm not letting it become somebody's vacation resort." "Then what's your plan?" Robert demanded. "Work yourself to death? Rely on some Ukrainian drifter? For how long? Another year, too? What happens when he decides to leave?" Or when winter comes and you can't afford to feed the cattle? Helen had no answer. Because he was right about one thing, she didn't have a plan. She was just surviving day to day, hoping things would somehow work out. Anton stepped forward. He'd been standing quietly, but now he spoke up. "May I see papers?" Everyone turned to look at him. Robert's eyebrows shot up. "Excuse me?" "The papers. The numbers." "May I see?" "This doesn't concern you," Robert said coldly. "This is family business." "I am." Anton stopped himself. What was he? Not family. Not really anything. "I work this land. I want to see." Mr. Chen looked at Robert, who shrugged. "Why not? Let him see how much money she's turning down." They spread the papers on the hood of Robert's SUV. Anton studied them carefully, his lips moving slightly as he read. Helen noticed the kids had all come outside now, standing on the porch watching. After a few minutes, Anton looked up. "This number here, this is what you offer?" "That's right," Mr. Chen said. $400,000. More than fair for a property this size in this condition? And this," Anton pointed to another section. "This says you take possession in 30 days? "Standard timeline." Anton nodded slowly. Then he pulled a small notebook from his pocket. It was battered, held together with a rubber band. He flipped through pages covered in cramped handwriting and numbers. "What are you doing?" Robert asked. "I make study," Anton said, "of this ranch. For 3 weeks I watch, I learn, I calculate." He pointed to a page. "Water rights alone are worth more than you offer. This land has Spring Creek that runs year-round. Is valuable. Very valuable." Mr. Chen's smile faded slightly. "I'm not sure a few weeks qualifies you to." "I am farmer 23 years. Anton interrupted. His English was getting better, Helen noticed. "I know land. I know water. I know what things are worth." He flipped to another page. "Grazing capacity is better than you think. Previous owner, he not rotate properly, but with right system can support twice as many cattle, maybe more." "That's speculation," Robert said. "No, is mathematics." Anton showed them his notebook. "See? Current grass coverage, rainfall average, soil composition. I test soil myself. Is good soil, just tired. Needs rotation. Needs rest periods." Then is very productive. Jack had walked over from the porch. "He's been teaching me about it," he said. "How to test soil pH and stuff. It's actually pretty cool." "Nobody asked you." Robert snapped at Jack. Anton's expression hardened. "Do not speak to boy that way, or what?" Robert stepped closer. "Who do you think you are? You show up here looking like garbage, living in a barn, and now you think you can tell me how to talk? You think you have any say in family decisions?" "Robert?" Helen started. "No, Helen, let's be clear here." Robert pointed at Anton. "You are not family. You are not even a real employee. You're just some guy who conned his way here with sad letters. You have no stake in this property. No rights, nothing, so sit down and shut up." The silence that followed was heavy. Anton's jaw was clenched so tight Helen could see the muscles jumping. Jack looked like he might cry. Rose had her hand over her mouth. Then Anton did something unexpected. He tore a page from his notebook and started writing. When he finished, he handed it to Helen. "What's this?" she asked. "His plan," he said quietly. "For ranch. How to fix problems. How to make profitable again. I work on this every night." He gestured to the page. "Rotation schedule. Repair priorities. Budget for feed and medicine. Ways to reduce cost. Ways to increase income. Everything I think could help." Helen stared at the paper. It was covered in neat columns of numbers, sketches of field layouts, detailed notes about which pastures needed what. This represented hours of work. Hours of thought and planning. "I know I am nobody," Anton continued, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "I know I come here with nothing. I know how I look, what people think. But this land, these animals, this family, I care about them. In 3 weeks, I care very much." "How touching," Robert said sarcastically. "Helen, this is ridiculous. Send him away. Sign these papers. Be done with this whole mess." Mr. Chen shifted uncomfortably. "Perhaps we should give you some time to think." "There's nothing to think about," Robert cut him off. "I'm her late husband's brother. I have legal standing to question her decision-making if she's running this place into the ground. Which she clearly is." "You're threatening me?" Helen asked, her voice dangerously quiet. "I'm protecting my brother's legacy, and his children. Look at them, Helen, really look at them. Lily's miserable. The twins are confused. You're exhausted? How is this better than taking the money and starting over? Helen did look at her children. Lily's face was unreadable. Rose looked scared. But Jack was looking at Anton with something like respect. Uncle Robert, Jack said quietly. Anton got the old tractor working. And he fixed the pump. And he saved that heifer during the storm. Mom couldn't have done all that alone. So she hires a real ranch hand, Robert said. Someone with credentials. Stop. It was Lily who spoke. She'd been silent this whole time, but now she walked down from the porch. Just stop, Uncle Robert. Everyone stared at her. She looked at Anton, really looked at him, maybe for the first time. I've been awful to you, she said. I know I have. And I'm not saying I'm suddenly okay with everything, but... She paused, struggling with the words. You work really hard. I see you out here every day. You never quit. And you're nice to Jack and Rose, even though I'm terrible to you. Anton blinked, surprised. You are not terrible. You are daughter who misses her father. This I understand. Lily's eyes filled with tears. Dad would have liked that you saved the heifer. He always said you could tell a lot about a person by how they treat animals. Your father sounds like good man, Anton said softly. He was. Robert made an exasperated sound. This is getting us nowhere. Helen, I'm going to ask you one more time. Are you going to sell? Or am I going to have to take legal action? Legal action? Helen repeated. On what grounds? On the grounds that you're making irrational decisions that endanger your children's financial future. I can petition the court to review your management of the estate. It won't be pretty, Helen, but I'll do it if I have to. Helen felt like she'd been punched. You'd drag us through court? Your own family? To protect my brother's children from watching their mother destroy their inheritance? Yes. That's when Anton started packing his bag. Helen found him in the barn 20 minutes later after Robert and Mr. Chen had finally left. He was folding his few possessions into the same battered cloth bag he'd arrived with. What are you doing? She asked. I cause problems, Anton said without looking up. Was not my intention, but is true. I leave, your brother-in-law leaves you alone. Is better this way. Anton, please. He finally looked at her and his eyes were sad. I think maybe I make mistake coming here. I think maybe I am selfish. You need help, yes, but you need help that does not make more trouble. I am too much trouble. That's not true. Your daughter, she hates me. Your neighbor, she thinks I am criminal. Your brother-in-law threatens you with court because of me. How is this not trouble? Helen didn't have an answer. Because he was right. Everything was worse since he'd arrived. Wasn't it? I go back to city, Anton said quietly. I find work in restaurant maybe. Or cleaning buildings, something. I survive. I am good at surviving. He picked up his bag and walked toward the door. Helen wanted to stop him, but what could she say? That he should stay and keep causing. That night, Helen couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Robert's threats, about Anton almost leaving, about the whole impossible situation she'd created. Around midnight, she gave up on sleep and went downstairs to make tea. She was surprised to see light coming from the barn again. She pulled on her coat and boots and walked across the dark yard, her breath forming clouds in the cold air. Anton was sitting on a hay bale, writing in his notebook by lamplight. He looked up when she came in, startled. I'm sorry. I should turn off light. I waste electricity. It's fine, Helen said. What are you working on? He hesitated, then showed her the notebook. I make more plans. For spring. If I am still here in spring. There was a question in his voice. Helen sat down on a nearby bale. Anton, can I ask you something? And I need you to be completely honest with me. He set down the notebook, his expression wary. Yes. Why did you really come here? What are you looking for? He was quiet for a long moment. Then he closed the notebook carefully and set it aside. You want truth? Full truth? Please. Okay. He took a deep breath. I tell you in letters I lose everything in war. This is true, but I do not tell you how much everything is. I do not tell you because I think if you know you do not want me to come. Helen waited. Anton's hands were gripping his knees and she could see they were shaking slightly. In my country I have farm. Not big, but is mine. 15 acres. Dairy cows, chickens, vegetables. I have wife Natalia. We marry young, 22 years old. We have daughter Oksana. She is 17 when war comes close to our town. His voice was steady, but Helen could hear the pain underneath. We hear fighting maybe 10 kilometers away. My neighbors, they already leave. But I think maybe is fine. Maybe Army stops them. I do not want to leave cows. Stupid, yes? But they are my life work. It's not stupid, Helen said softly. Is stupid, Anton said firmly, because I wait too long. When we finally go, we take only what we can carry. I hear my cows crying in barn behind us. I can still hear them. He paused. We go to train station. It's very crowded, everyone pushing, trying to leave. Natalia and Oksana, they get on train. But there is no room for me. They say men must fight, must stay. I argue, I push, I try to get on. But someone pulls me back, security maybe, I do not know. Helen's chest tightened. They left without you? I tell Natalia, take next train. I meet them in Warsaw. Train leaves. I watch them go. His voice broke slightly. Train is bombed. 15 kilometers from station. Everyone died. Everyone. Oh my God, Helen whispered. I do not fight after this. I cannot, I walk. I walk for days. I do not eat, do not sleep. I want to die. But I am too coward to die. So I keep walking. I make it to Poland. Then Germany. Then I work for 6 months in factory saving money. Then I come here. He looked at her directly now. The photos I send you, they are from before. From when I am still person, when I still have farm, family, future. When I take those photos, Natalia is standing next to me. I crop her out. Is dishonest, I know, but I cannot send photo of who I am now. Man with nothing. Man who smells like defeat. Helen felt tears on her cheeks. Why didn't you tell me this before? Because it's too much, too sad. You have own sadness, own problems. You do not need mine too. He picked at a piece of hay. I think when I come here, maybe I can forget. Maybe new place, new work makes old memories quiet. But they do not get quiet. They get louder. Is that why you keep your old clothes? Helen asked. The ones you arrived in? He nodded. I keep them to remember. To remember I have nothing. To remember what happens when you wait too long. When you think tomorrow will be better. Tomorrow is not always better. Sometimes tomorrow is worse. They sat in silence for a while. The barn was quiet except for the sound of animals settling down for the night. Can I tell you something? Helen said finally. About Michael? If you want. Everyone thinks we had this perfect marriage. This perfect life. And we did mostly. But the last year before he died, things were hard. The ranch was already struggling. We fought about money, about whether to sell, about everything. The last conversation we had before his heart attack, we were angry at each other. I said things I can't take back. Her voice cracked. He died thinking I wanted to sell the ranch. Thinking I didn't believe in his dream anymore. And maybe he was right. Maybe I didn't believe. But then he was gone. And everyone expected me to keep everything going like he would have wanted. How do I keep alive the dream of a man I'd stopped believing in? Anton was looking at her with such understanding it hurt. You think you fail him? I know I failed him. No. Anton shook his head. You are still here, still trying, still fighting. This is not failure. Failure is giving up. You do not give up. I'm barely holding on, Helen said, and everyone knows it. Dorothy knows it. Robert knows it. Even my own daughter knows it. I'm drowning, Anton. And then you showed up and I thought maybe you could help. But I didn't think about what it would cost you. Coming here, dealing with the stares and the judgment. I was selfish. No, Anton said again more firmly. You give me chance. You give me place to work to be useful again. You know what it is like to have nothing? To be nothing? To wake up every day with no purpose? You give me purpose. This is not selfish. This is gift, Helen wiped her eyes. Some gift. A falling apart ranch and a family that doesn't want you here. Jack wants me here. And Rose, she is warming up. She smiled at me yesterday when I show her how to feed chickens properly. Was small smile, but was real. And Lily? Anton sighed. Lily is like you. She is strong. She is angry because she is hurt. Anger is easier than hurt. I understand this. After Natalia and Oksana die, I am angry for a long time. Angry at Army, at war, at God, at myself. Especially at myself. Anger keeps you standing when grief wants you to fall down. How did you stop being angry? Helen asked. I do not stop completely. Anger is still there. But I learned to use it. To make it fuel instead of fire. I am angry, so I work hard. I am angry, so I rebuild. I am angry, so I survive. He looked at her. You do same thing. You are angry Michael leaves you, so you keep ranch. You are angry world is unfair, so you fight back. This is good. Anger can be good if you point it right direction. They talked until almost 2 in the morning. Anton told her more about his farm, his family, his life before the war. Helen told him about Michael, about the good times before the hard times, about how lost she felt every single day. When Helen finally went back to the house, she felt lighter somehow. Like sharing the weight of her grief with someone who understood made it easier to carry. The next morning, she made a decision. She called a lawyer. "I need to set up a trust," she told him, "for the ranch. I want it in my children's names, protected from any claims. If something happens to me, I want to make sure they inherit, not anyone else." "That's smart estate planning," the lawyer said. "Who did you want to name as trustee?" "My brother-in-law wants that role, but I'm not giving it to him." "Okay, who then?" Helen took a breath. "Can I name someone who's not family? Someone who doesn't have any legal claim to the property?" "Sure. Is there someone specific you have in mind?" "Yes," Helen said. "Anton Petrov," the lawyer paused. "And who is that?" "Someone I trust." When she told Anton that evening, he looked at her like she'd lost her mind. "You cannot do this." "It's crazy." "Why is it crazy?" "Because I am nobody. I have no right to property. If you die, your brother-in-law will destroy me in court. He will say I manipulate you, that I trick you. He will win." "Maybe," Helen said. "But I'm not planning on dying anytime soon. And while I'm alive, this makes sure the ranch goes to my kids no matter what Robert tries to pull. You wouldn't own anything. You'd just make sure the ranch operates in their best interest until they're old enough to take over." "But why me? Why trust me with this?" "Because you're the only person I know who wants nothing from this ranch except to see it survive. Robert wants to sell it. Dorothy wants to gossip about it, but you just want to work it. That's who I want protecting my children's inheritance." Anton sat down heavily on the porch steps. "In my country, we have saying. Roughly translates to, trust is not given, is earned. You barely know me 3 weeks. How you trust me with something so important?" "Because you stayed with that heifer for 3 days, Helen said. "Because you tried to leave when you thought you were causing problems. Because you sit up every night making plans to save a ranch that isn't even yours. Because you understand loss and you would never let my children lose their home the way you lost yours." Anton's eyes were shining. "I do not deserve this trust." "None of us deserve most of the good things we get," Helen said. "But we get them anyway, and then we try to be worthy of them." He nodded slowly. "Okay, if this is what you want, I accept. But I promise you, I will protect this land and your children with my life. This I swear." "I know," Helen said. "That's why I asked." 2 days later, the papers were filed. The ranch was now held in trust for Lily, Jack, and Rose. With Helen as primary trustee and Anton as successor trustee, Robert would have no claim even if he won a competency hearing. Helen waited for the fallout. It came faster than she expected. Robert showed up 3 days later and he was furious. He'd somehow found out about the trust. "You gave control to a stranger? A man you met through a catalog? Helen, this proves you're not competent to make decisions." Helen stared at the calendar on her kitchen wall. It was the middle of December now, 6 weeks since Anton had arrived. The ranch was running better than it had in years. The animals were healthy. The repairs were getting done. But there was a problem, and it was getting bigger every day. Anton's visa. He'd come on a temporary agricultural worker visa that was about to expire. If he left, everything they'd built would fall apart. Helen had called immigration lawyers, but the answer was always the same. The easiest path to permanent residency was marriage. Marriage. To a man she barely knew. A man who slept in her barn, but what choice did she have? The ranch needed him. The kids, especially Jack, needed him. She needed him, though she was afraid to admit how much. She found Anton in the barn as usual. "We need to talk." He looked up from the harness he was mending. "Is something wrong?" "Your visa expires in 3 weeks. His hand stilled. "Yes, I know. You knew? And you weren't going to say anything?" "I think maybe I go back to city. Find other work. Other visa. I do not want to cause more problems for you. Anton, we've been over this. You can't leave. The ranch will survive," he said quietly. "You survived before me. You survive after." "Barely," Helen said. "Anton, I'm asking you to stay permanently." He looked at her carefully. "What you mean, permanently?" Helen took a deep breath. "I mean, we get married legally. It's the fastest way to fix the visa problem. We go to the courthouse, sign papers, and you can stay." Anton set down the harness. "You want to marry me?" For visa. To keep you here. Yes. This is not reason to marry. It's a practical reason. People get married for all sorts of reasons. This is ours. Anton stood up and walked to the barn door, looking out at the winter landscape. In my country, marriage is a sacred thing. You marry for love, for family, for building life together. Not for papers. I know it's not ideal. It's not about ideal. He turned to face her, and his voice was sharper than she'd ever heard it. You want me to marry you for convenience? Like I am tool you need? Like I am tractor you must keep on property? Helen flinched. That's not what I meant. Then what you mean? Because I come here with nothing. I am grateful, yes. I work hard, yes. But I am still person. I have dignity. Marriage should mean something. It would mean something, Helen said. It would mean you're part of this family. Officially. Legally, it would mean... She stopped, unsure how to continue. What would it mean? Anton asked quietly. It would mean I trust you. It would mean I want you to stay. It would mean... She struggled with the words. It would mean you're not just hired help. Your partner. Anton was quiet for a long time. If we do this right. Not pretend, not fake. Real marriage or no marriage? Real marriage, Helen asked. What does that mean? Means we try. We learn each other. We build something together. Maybe love comes, maybe not. But we try with respect, with honesty. Not just for papers, Helen thought about this. Where would you live? Still in the barn? If you want. I do not presume anything, but he hesitated. Would be strange, yes? Husband in barn, wife in house. Even if marriage is practical, should look real. For government. For neighbors, he was right. If immigration investigated and she was still living separately from her husband, it would look like a fraud. Which Helen admitted to herself it kind of was. Except it also kind of wasn't. There's a guest room, she said. You could stay there. We'd be under the same roof, but you'd have privacy. We'd take things slow. Anton nodded. This is fair. And children? What we tell them? The truth. That we're getting married so you can stay and keep helping with the ranch. That we're partners. That we'll see where things go. You think they will understand? Jack will. Rose probably will, Lily, Helen sighed. Lily's going to have opinions. Lily had many opinions. When Helen told the kids that night at dinner, Lily put down her fork very carefully. You're marrying him? Yes. After 6 weeks? Yes. Because of a visa. Partially because of that, yes. Partially? Lily's voice was rising. Mom, this is insane. You can't marry someone you don't love just to keep them in the country. That's illegal. It's not illegal if we're genuinely building a partnership, Helen said. And we are. Anton's part of this family now. The marriage just makes it official. Part of this family. Lily stood up. He's been here 6 weeks. Dad's been dead 2 years. 2 years, Mom? I know how long it's been, Helen said quietly. Do you? Because it seems like you're trying to replace him. I could never replace your father. Anton knows that. We all know that. This isn't about that, Jack spoke up. I think it's okay. Anton's cool. He teaches me stuff. Of course you think it's okay, Lily snapped at him. You're 14. You don't understand what this means. I understand Mom's been happier since Anton got here, Jack shot back. I understand the ranch is doing better. I understand she's not crying herself to sleep anymore. Helen's breath caught. Jack, I hear you, Mom, he said, his voice cracking. Through the walls. I heard you crying every night after Dad died, but you don't cry anymore. Not since Anton came. There was a moment of painful silence. Then Rose, who'd been quiet until now, said softly, I like Anton. He's nice to the animals. And he fixed my bike. Lily looked at her siblings like they'd betrayed her. You're all crazy. This whole family is crazy. She grabbed her coat and headed for the door. Where are you going? Helen called. Out! The door slammed. Helen put her head in her hands. Anton, who'd been standing in the doorway, spoke quietly. I talked to her. Anton, I don't think... Please. Let me try. He found Lily sitting on the hood of the old truck, looking up at the stars. She didn't move when he approached. You come to convince me? She asked. No, I come to listen. If you want to talk. Lily was quiet for a minute. Then, do you love my mom? Anton sat on the truck next to her, careful to keep some distance. I respect her very much. I admire her strength. Do I love her like man loves woman? I do not know yet. We do not know each other long enough for that kind of love. But there are different kinds of love. I love that she gives me chance. I love that she trusts me. I love this place she is trying to save. That's not the same as being in love. No, is not. But maybe is start? I do not know. I have loved before. My wife, I love her very much. She is gone now. I think maybe I do not love like that again. Maybe that kind of love comes only once. But maybe there is different kind of love. Quieter. Based on respect and work and building together. Maybe this is what your mother and I can have. I hope so. Lily wiped her eyes. Everyone at school talks about us. They make jokes. They call her desperate. Yes, I know this. It's hard. It's humiliating. Yes, for you. For her. For me also. He paused. But you know what? People always talk. Always judge. Your mother could marry richest man in town. They still find something to say. This is how people are. So we should just ignore them? No, we should prove them wrong. We should work hard, make ranch successful. Show everyone your mother makes good choice. This is how you stop talk. Not by caring what they say, but by showing them they are wrong. Lily pulled her knees up to her chest. I miss my dad. Of course you do. This is natural. And you will always miss him. I will never be your father. I do not try to be. But maybe I can be friend? Someone who helps, who listens, who cares about what happens to you? Why would you care about us? You don't even know us. I know you are a brave girl who protects her family. I know you are angry because you are scared. I know you think if you push me away, maybe I go and cannot hurt you like your father's death hurt you. I understand all these things because I am same way after my family dies. I push everyone away. I think if I care about nothing, then nothing can hurt me again. Did it work? No, made everything worse, made me more alone. He looked at her. You do not have to like me, Lily. You do not have to call me father or even friend. But please do not push your mother away. She needs you, and you need her. Do not let anger break what is left of your family. Lily was crying now. I'm so tired of pretending everything's okay. Then stop pretending. Be angry, be sad, be scared. These are all real things. But be these things with family, not against family. They sat in silence for a while, looking at the stars. Finally, Lily said, If you hurt my mom, I'll make your life miserable. This is fair, Anton said seriously. And if this is some kind of scam to take the ranch, then you will be first to know, and you will be right to hate me. Lily slid off the truck. I'm still not happy about this. I would not expect you to be, but... She hesitated. I won't fight it. For Mom's sake. Thank you. The wedding was the following Tuesday at the courthouse. No guests except Dorothy, who came more out of curiosity than support, and the 3 kids. Helen wore a simple blue dress. Anton wore the one decent outfit he'd managed to buy from the thrift store, pants that almost fit, and a shirt that was only slightly too big. The ceremony took 5 minutes. The judge read the legal words. They signed the papers. Anton had managed to find a simple silver band at a pawn shop, using money he'd earned doing odd jobs in town. Helen didn't have a ring for him and felt guilty about it, but he said it didn't matter. Now you are husband and wife, the judge said. You may kiss the bride. They looked at each other awkwardly. Anton leaned in and gave Helen a gentle kiss on the cheek. Quick, respectful. The judge raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Spring came late that year. By March, the snow was mostly gone and the ranch was coming back to life. Helen could see the changes Anton had made over the winter. The fields looked healthier. The equipment actually worked. The animals were thriving on his careful rotation system. Things at home were better too. Anton had moved properly into the guest room, and it felt more natural having him in the house. He and Jack were inseparable, always working on some project together. Rose had started bringing her homework to him instead of Helen, because he had more patience with her math struggles. Even Lily was softening, occasionally asking his opinion on things. Helen found herself looking forward to mornings, when she and Anton would drink coffee together before the kids woke up. They didn't always talk. Sometimes they just sat in comfortable silence watching the sun come up over the hills. It was peaceful in a way Helen hadn't felt in years. Then the freeze came. The weather report called it a late Arctic blast. Temperatures would drop below freezing for 3 nights straight, right in the middle of calving season. It was every rancher's nightmare. Newborn calves couldn't survive that kind of cold. They'd lose half the herd, maybe more. Helen stood in the kitchen at 5 in the morning, staring at the thermometer. 23 degrees. The calves had started coming 2 days ago. There were already 15 newborns in the pasture, with more coming every hour. We bring them all to barn, Anton said, pulling on his heavy coat. His only way. There's not enough room in the barn for all of them. Not with the mothers, too. Then we make room. We move equipment, we use every space. We work until it's done. They worked all day. Helen, Anton, and the kids bringing in the mothers who'd already given birth, setting up makeshift pens, spreading hay everywhere for warmth. By nightfall, they had 22 calves and their mothers safely inside. But there were still pregnant cows in the field, and the temperature was dropping fast. Helen was exhausted. Every muscle ached. She hadn't eaten since breakfast. But she went back out with Anton to check on the remaining herd. That's when they found her. A heifer down on the ground in active labor. The calf was coming breech. The mother was in distress, her eyes rolling with panic. "We have to help her," Helen said, dropping to her knees in the frozen mud. "Is dangerous," Anton warned. "She is scared. She might kick. I don't care. We're not losing this calf." They worked together, Helen talking softly to the heifer while Anton tried to turn the calf. It was brutal work. The heifer thrashed and bellowed. The calf was stuck. Helen's hands were covered in blood and birth fluid, frozen almost instantly in the cold air. "Almost," Anton grunted. "Almost got it." Little more, then the heifer kicked. Hard. Her hoof caught Helen square in the ribs and sent her flying backward. She hit the ground hard, her head cracking against a rock hidden in the grass. "Helen!" Anton abandoned the calf and ran to her. "Helen, can you hear me?" Everything was spinning. Helen tried to sit up and gasped in pain. Her ribs screamed. Her head throbbed. She tasted blood in her mouth. "Don't move," Anton said. His hands were shaking as he checked her over. "Your leg is wrong angle." Helen looked down. Her left leg was bent in a way that made her stomach turn. "Broken. Definitely broken." "The calf," she managed to say. "Forget the calf. I need to get you to hospital. The calf will die. The heifer will die." "Anton, please." He looked torn, agonized. Then he made a decision. "Jack!" He yelled toward the house. "Jack, come now. Bring phone." Jack came running. When he saw his mother on the ground, his face went white. "Mom, call 911, Anton ordered." "Tell them broken leg, maybe concussion. Then stay with your mother." "I must finish with heifer." "What? No, you should. There is no time to argue. Your mother is hurt because she tries to save calf. I will not let calf die. Now call." While Jack called for an ambulance, Anton went back to the heifer. Helen watched through waves of pain as he worked, his hands sure and steady despite the chaos. After what felt like forever but was probably only minutes, he managed to turn the calf. It slid out into the frozen world, not moving. Anton grabbed it by the back legs and lifted it upside down. He swung it gently, clearing the airways. Nothing. He laid it down and started pressing on its chest, rhythmic compressions. Once, twice, 3 times the calf coughed. Then it took a gasping breath. Then another. It was alive. The ambulance arrived 20 minutes later. By then Lily and Rose were outside too, Lily crying. Rose frozen in shock. The paramedics loaded Helen onto a stretcher. "My children," Helen said through gritted teeth. "Someone needs to stay with my children." "I stay," Anton said. "I take care of everything. You go get fixed. We manage here. But the calves, the freeze, we manage," he said firmly. He leaned close. "Helen, you trust me." She did. God help her, she did. "Yes, and then trust me now. I will protect everything. I promise." They took her away, sirens wailing into the night. At the hospital, the news was bad. Broken leg in 2 places. Cracked ribs. Mild concussion. She'd need surgery and at least 6 weeks of recovery. 6 weeks when she couldn't work, couldn't walk, couldn't do anything. 6 weeks when the ranch's survival would fall entirely on Anton and her children. Back at the ranch, Anton stood in the yard as the ambulance disappeared. 3 kids looking at him with fear in their eyes. A barn full of cattle. A field full of pregnant cows. A freeze that would last 3 more nights. And the weight of a promise he wasn't sure he could keep. "What do we do?" Lily asked, her voice small. Anton took a deep breath. "We work, we save every calf we can. And we show your mother that she was right to trust us." That night, none of them slept. They brought in 4 more mothers who gave birth. They rigged up heat lamps everywhere. They fed, they cleaned, they watched. Anton sent the kids in shifts to rest for an hour, but he never stopped. He was everywhere at once, checking on animals, fixing problems, making decisions. By the second night, word had spread about Helen's accident. Dorothy showed up at dawn with thermoses of coffee and sandwiches. "Heard what happened," she said. "Figure you could use some help." "Is very kind," Anton said, surprised. "Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Half the town thinks you're going to run off now that Helen's down. Prove them wrong." More neighbors showed up throughout the day. Mr. Johnson from the feed store brought extra hay and refused payment. The Willis family from 3 ranches over came with their truck to help transport supplies. Even Mrs. Peterson from church arrived with a casserole and an apology. "I may have judged too quickly," she said stiffly to Anton. "Helen spoke well of you. I should have listened." By the third night, they had a system. Neighbors working in shifts. The kids organized and focused. Anton directing everything with quiet authority. They saved 38 calves. They only lost 2, both from mothers who gave birth in the far field before they could be brought in. When the freeze finally broke, everyone was exhausted. But the calves were alive. The herd was safe. They'd done it. Anton stood in the barn at sunrise looking at all the sleeping calves and their mothers. Jack came up beside him. "We did good, didn't we?" Jack said. "You did very good. You work like man. Your father would be proud. Do you think Mom's okay?" "Your mother is strongest person I know. She will heal. She will come home. And when she does, we show her everything we accomplished." But there was a problem Anton hadn't mentioned to anyone. During all the chaos, Robert had been calling, leaving messages, sending texts. Anton had been too busy to respond. But the messages were clear. Robert was making his move. The morning after the freeze ended, Robert showed up with his lawyer and David Chen from the development company. Anton was in the barn when they arrived. He walked out to meet them, exhausted, covered in hay and mud. "Where's Helen?" Robert demanded. "In hospital. She have accident during freeze. Broken leg, broken ribs." Robert's expression flickered with something that might have been concern, but it was gone quickly. "And she left you in charge? Perfect. That's exactly what I need." "What you want?" Anton asked warily. "I want to talk about the future of this ranch. Helen's obviously unable to manage it. She's in the hospital. You're a foreign worker with no legal claim. The children are minors. This property needs proper management." "Is managed fine," Anton said. "We survive freeze. We save almost all calves. Ranch is good. You got lucky," Robert said. "What about next crisis? And the one after that? Helen can't keep doing this. She proved that by ending up in the hospital. It's time to sell before someone else gets hurt." David Chen stepped forward with his briefcase. "We're prepared to make an offer today. Given the circumstances, Mrs. Thompson would be wise to consider it seriously." "Mrs. Thompson is married now," Anton said quietly. "To me. And she already tell you ranch is not for sale." "You're not her legal guardian," the lawyer said. "You have no power of attorney. You can't make decisions for her. I am her husband. I speak for her wishes." "Her wishes are clear." Robert smiled, but it wasn't friendly. "Here's what's going to happen. I'm filing a petition with the court. Helen's judgment is clearly impaired. She married a stranger, broke her leg trying to save a cow, and left her children's welfare in the hands of someone with no legal rights. I'm asking for emergency custodial rights over the children and conservatorship of the estate until Helen proves she's competent." Anton felt ice in his stomach. "You cannot do this." The 2 weeks before the court hearing passed in a blur. Helen worked with a lawyer she could barely afford, a young woman fresh out of law school who took the case more out of idealism than for the money. Anton spent every spare moment documenting everything: records of ranch improvements, financial statements showing increased profitability, testimonies from neighbors. The night before the hearing, Helen couldn't sleep. She rolled her wheelchair into the kitchen at 2 a.m. and found Anton already there, poring over papers by lamplight. "You should rest," she said. "Cannot rest. Keep thinking I missed something important." He rubbed his eyes tiredly. "In my country, I know how things work. Here is all different. American law, American courts. I feel like I fight with hands tied." "We're going to lose, aren't we?" Helen said quietly. Anton was silent for a moment. "I do not know. Maybe. Your brother has good lawyer, has money, has respect. We have truth. Sometimes truth wins. Sometimes it does not. If we lose, what happens to you? I leave. Go back to city, find work. I survive. He looked at her. But I will think of this place every day. Of you, of children, of what we almost built. This will hurt more than leaving my farm in Ukraine. Because there I have no choice. Here I choose to stay, to fight. And still I lose. Helen felt tears on her cheeks. This is all my fault. If I'd been more careful, if I hadn't broken my leg, then heifer and calf die. Then freeze comes and we lose more animals. Then ranch fails anyway, just slower. He reached across and took her hand. You make no mistake except caring too much. This is not mistake. This is who you are. The morning of the hearing, the whole town seemed to know about it. The courthouse parking lot was packed. Inside, people filled every seat. Helen recognized faces from church, from the feed store, from neighboring ranches. She couldn't tell who was there to support them and who was there to watch them fail. Robert sat on the other side with his expensive lawyer, Mr. Chen, and a parade of people ready to testify against Helen's competence. His lawyer was a sharp-dressed man named Harrison who looked like he ate small-town cases for breakfast. The hearing began. Judge Martinez, a stern-faced woman in her 50s, reviewed the case file with a frown. This is highly unusual. Mr. Thompson, you're seeking emergency conservatorship over your sister-in-law and custody of your nieces and nephew? Yes, Your Honor, Robert said. I'm deeply concerned for their welfare. Since my brother's death, Helen has made increasingly questionable decisions, the most recent being a hasty marriage to a foreign national she met through an internet service, followed by a serious injury that's left her unable to manage the property. Harrison stood up. Your Honor, we have documentation showing a pattern of poor judgment. Mrs. Thompson married a man she'd known for less than 2 months, a man who arrived in this country with no assets, no references, and no verifiable background. She then gave him access to her children and put him in charge of a valuable property during her incapacitation. He called his first witness. David Chen, the developer, testified about the ranch's declining value and Helen's refusal to consider reasonable business opportunities. Then Dorothy took the stand. Helen's heart sank. Dorothy had helped during the freeze, but before that she'd been full of warnings and doubts. Mrs. Henderson, Harrison said smoothly. You've been neighbors with Mrs. Thompson for how long? 15 years, Dorothy said. And you've observed her behavior since Mr. Thompson's death? Yes. Would you say she's been making rational decisions? Dorothy was quiet for a moment. Then she said, That depends on what you mean by rational. Harrison looked surprised. I mean mentally sound. Competent. Acting in her own best interests. Well, Dorothy said slowly, if rational means giving up and selling out, then no, Helen hasn't been rational. But if rational means fighting like hell to save her family's legacy, working herself half to death, and making hard choices that nobody else would be brave enough to make, then yes, she's been extremely rational. Robert's lawyer blinked. Mrs. Henderson, you previously expressed concerns about Mrs. Thompson's marriage to Mr. Petrov. I did, and I was wrong. Dorothy looked directly at the judge. I judged Anton before I knew him. A lot of us did. But during that freeze, when Helen was in the hospital and everything could have fallen apart, that man worked 3 days straight saving those calves. And he didn't do it alone. He organized the children, coordinated with neighbors, made smart decisions under pressure. He did exactly what Helen would have done if she'd been there. Maybe better because he wasn't too proud to ask for help. Harrison tried to redirect. But surely you agree that marrying someone after such a short acquaintance, people have married for worse reasons. Dorothy cut him off. Love at first sight, money, convenience, green cards. At least Helen and Anton are building something real. I see it when they work together. The way they communicate without words. The way they make decisions as a team. That's more than a lot of marriages have after 20 years. After Dorothy stepped down, Robert's side called a few more witnesses. A social worker testified about the irregularity of the home situation. A financial consultant questioned the ranch's viability, but none of it seemed to land the way Harrison wanted. Then it was their turn. Helen's lawyer, Amanda, called Jack to the stand first. Jack, can you tell the court about your life since Mr. Petrov arrived? Jack sat up straight, looking nervous but determined. Anton teaches me stuff. Real stuff about ranching and fixing things and how to work hard. He doesn't talk down to me like I'm a kid. He explains things and lets me help with real work. Do you feel safe with him? Yeah, totally. He saved my mom's heifer when I thought it was going to die. He worked through that freeze making sure all the animals were okay. And he's nice to my sisters even when Lily was mean to him. Would you want your Uncle Robert to have custody of you? Jack hesitated, then looked at Robert. No, sir. Uncle Robert's okay, but he doesn't care about the ranch. He just wants to sell it. Anton and Mom, they care. They're trying to save what my dad built. Rose testified next, shy but honest. Anton fixed my bike, and he helps me with math homework. He's patient. He doesn't yell when I don't understand things right away. Then Lily took the stand. Helen held her breath. Lily had been unpredictable lately, softer toward Anton but still carrying so much anger. Lily, Amanda said gently, what do you think about your mother's marriage to Anton? Lily was quiet for a long moment. At first I hated it. I thought she was trying to replace my dad. I thought Anton was some scammer taking advantage of her. And now? Now I think, Lily paused, choosing her words carefully. I think my mom did something incredibly brave. She had two choices, give up or fight. She chose to fight. Anton isn't my dad. He'll never be my dad. But he's someone who cares about us. Someone who works hard. Someone who keeps his promises. Do you want to stay with your mother? Yes. Lily's voice was firm. We're a family. Weird and messy and not like other families, but we're still a family. Uncle Robert wants to break us apart and sell what my dad built. That's not protecting us. That's giving up. Harrison cross-examined her aggressively, trying to get her to admit the situation was inappropriate or uncomfortable. But Lily held firm. She was her mother's daughter, Helen realized. Stubborn and strong. Then Amanda called Anton to the stand. He walked up slowly, wearing the same thrift store clothes from the wedding. He still looked out of place in the courthouse, too rough around the edges, too obviously poor. But he held his head high. Mr. Petrov, Amanda said, why did you come to America? I come because I lose everything. My family, my farm, my life. I come to start again. Why did you respond to Helen's advertisement? Because she writes about land like I write about land. Like his living thing that needs care. I understand this. I understand her. I think maybe we help each other. Do you love Helen? Anton looked at Helen. His eyes were steady. When I arrive, no. I do not love her. I respect her. I admire her. But love takes time. Now after 4 months, I love her strength. I love her courage. I love how she fights for her children. Do I love her like husband should love wife? I am learning. Every day I learn more. Every day I care more. Is this love? Maybe not Hollywood love, but is real, is solid, is growing. What would happen to the ranch if you had to leave? Would survive maybe, but would be harder. Helen and children, they work so hard already. They need partner. They need someone who shares burden. He paused. But more than this, I need them. They give me reason to wake up. They give me purpose. They give me family again. If I lose this, I lose everything second time. And I do not think I survive losing everything twice. His voice cracked on the last word. In the courtroom, no one moved. Even Harrison looked uncomfortable. Then Amanda called her surprise witness. Mr. Johnson from the feed store. Mr. Johnson, Amanda said, you've been serving this area for how many years? 35 years. You knew Michael Thompson? Very well. Sold to him for 20 years. What do you think Michael would say about the current situation? Robert's lawyer objected. Speculation, Your Honor. But Judge Martinez overruled him. I'll allow it, Mr. Johnson. The old man was quiet for a moment. Michael Thompson loved 3 things: his family, his land, and honest work. Helen's kept his family together.